Now, before we move to our isLogged method of the login class, I've just realized that obviously we haven't quite finished this method yet. We need to obviously redirect the user to the URL, which we've just created above. So we're going to use helper method called redirect. We haven't got this method as yet, but we will create in just a second, and we will pass one parameter, which will be our URL to which we want the visitor to be redirected to. So if we open our helper class, you can close the browser now, scroll down, and let's create a new method, public static function called redirect. And we are passing URL. We assign null to this parameter by default, and we check if isn't empty URL, then we're going to do something. And what we're going to do is we'll use header function, PHP function, with a location, colon, and in between the curly braces, our URL. Then double quotes at the end, semicolon, and exit right after. So this function basically will redirect us to the URL which we're going to pass as a parameter. Now if we save the page, the method itself. Okay, now we are back in our login class. Let's copy the name isLogged, create a few new lines right before this method, and create a new public static function isLogged. We are going to pass one parameter, which will be the case. We'll assign null by default again. We check if isn't empty case. And now if session with the name which is stored inside of one of our properties, self underscore valid login, which in other words, the valid assigned to this specific property is valid. So if the session valid exists, so first of all, we obviously have to check if is set session valid, and session valid, if we copy this whole thing, equals 1, then we will return value depending on if is set session case, because obviously we're checking if this case now exists, and if it does, then we return true, otherwise we return false. And right after our first if statement, we also have to return false. So if, let's say, case was empty, obviously we want to return false as well. And after our second if statement, we also want to return false. So if this statement isn't true, then obviously we want to return false as well. Okay, so that's all fine, but it's not really readable that much. So if we put it on 2 lines separately so you can see it a little bit better now, I guess. Okay, if we save the class, go back to our browser, hit the refresh button, you can see we've been redirected to our login page. With the refer, we know which page we wanted to access before we've been redirected. We wanted to access checkout, and now every time we click on checkout, it's going to redirect us back to the login page, which we haven't created yet. So obviously we won't be able to access checkout unless we are logged in. Now let's move to the next video. We're going to create a few other methods for the login class later on, but let's start with our login page.